So there's a strange phenomenon among men and women in society, specifically in this hyper capitalistic, which is clearly not working out anymore, United States, between women that are younger, of between 20s, 30s, and men that are older. So I'm talking about Gen X, late 40s, 48 plus to, I don't know, 75. And the phenomenon goes like this. What we've seen time and again is how women and men have been socialized from a young age. For example, you're in middle school, and now women or girls are starting to look, you know, prepubescent, or, they're developing. And boys, we all know, develop later in life, a little bit later. They have baby faces. And there's something interesting I saw on X, how these older men were actually bullying 18-year-old boys that were in prom with their girlfriends, saying it's crazy how 18 the girls look so much older than their age, but just them trying to take away the boys' chance of having the opportunity with girls their age, because men compete at every level with one another, doesn't matter the age. And the crazy thing is, they not only compete with one another, they compete with women, specifically younger women. I believe this stems from the junior high school days, when you are in your adolescence and you're getting to your preteen, adult, young adult years, and they see that girls are getting into makeup, and sometimes they'll, poke fun at you or just start to tease girls. And I remember distinctly, when I was in sixth grade, that's the year that you start recognizing differences. Like, you're no longer like boys and girls just like playing around. You start to notice, some boys liking girls, girls liking other boys. And I would notice that a lot of the guys near me would just start to be really mean and say nasty things to the girls they liked. And I would always like side eye them, like, and they just knew not to say ish to me because I was friends with those girls. And they would specifically pick on these girls because these girls were more so considered popular. And I believe that it stems from this age, where boys are starting to recognize a sort of power dynamic difference within looks and physicality, and how girls are treated in, like, in regard to themselves. So oftentimes boys act out and do, just disruptive things in a classroom to get attention, while girls naturally get attention for just being smart. They can easily able they're just much more able to articulate their thoughts at a younger age. Not only that, they also start putting more effort, because hello, look at the marketing we've been fed since we're in like second grade. God forbid a girl is fat or a girl whatever. These beauty standards are pushed on girls so young. So now when you start entering into that era where you can kind of start to play around with things, experiment with what you like, what you don't like, you start doing it, naturally so. And that's when there's this contempt that happens within the classroom. And I believe that it just never, it's a thing that for these boys, as they grow into men and into adulthood, into their wealth, when they are now having worked in a career for 30, 40 years, they have never been able to let go of the fact that they felt inferior to girls from that age, that's the root that I'm starting to think. I mean, I just have been thinking about this for a while. That is the root issue, and as a result, the men that date younger, way younger, they have this sort of need, in a sense, to humble beauty in women and to try to make, in like covert ways, you feel if you're a beautiful woman, or even if you're just an attractive woman, because many men date women that are far younger. It doesn't matter if you're the most attractive woman. If they see something in you that they want and like, it could just be a characteristic or a quality. You might be much more educated in certain areas, and they might find that very interesting, and they will pick your brain, because men, not only do they take from women when it comes to just being able to be in proximity to younger women, they also are there for the way that you think, your mind, your heart, body, and soul, and just the way that they're perceived in society next to you. Because with a beautiful woman comes the okay that you are probably a man of good standing and someone that can be taken seriously. Because let's be honest, most men know that other men suck. They do not respect one another. They do not like one another. They quite frankly put up with one another. And that teasing that happened in 6th grade, that will go on well into their adult years, well into them already having kids and a wife. They will consistently try to humble one another, because this contempt that has been just ingrained within them comes from their socialization of men since they were little boys in elementary school, being told not to feel their feelings. And when someone is told to suppress their feelings, they will become depressed. They will become just not in touch with themselves, their mind, and the body. They will not be able to articulate their feelings. And oftentimes, when you ask a lot of men like how they feel, they do not know. And there's a term for this. I think it's like allo, or I forget the term, but they require women to be in relation to women because they also borrow your nervous system to regulate their own, because they are completely one extreme or another for the most part. This is why so many men can just turn off on a switch. One moment they're in love with you, and the next they're like, I never even cared. So you have to protect your heart, mind, and body in any sort of relationship that you're in with a man, even if it's just a friendship. And you also need to make sure you have boundaries, because these men will try to pick your brain for everything. And no matter how much they are picking your brain, they will often say they understand XYZ, but when it comes down to it, they don't fully comprehend half of what we're saying. Because, I mean, yeah, the brain can only retain 10% of what it hears. However, men just will have us talking and explaining things to them just because they enjoy seeing women worked up, and they just like stressing you out. And it becomes really detrimental if you're in relationship and you might have on the spectrum, neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, whatever the case, to a man for a long period of time, because you will end up feeling burnt out. Your nervous system will feel it, and the allostatic load, which is the stress that you feel within your mind and body, it's just a high cortisol that almost feels that it never goes away, because certain men, especially narcissism, sociopaths, psychopaths, just men in any sort of position of power, have this effect not just on women and relationships, but every person in their life, family, friends, and work.